What's up, YouTube? Had some errors with the audio, my last recording, so I'm going to have to redo this. So I'll probably just delete those, and this will be all that's on my channel. So, welcome. I don't want to, I'm hoping to get into politics. I want to do that. I much prefer that. But this is like a very good, this is what I kind of base a lot of my politics on. Like, I won't say I base it on this, but it definitely it is a big part of how I see the world. Obviously, I mean, you can already just think of the implications of this. But so let's just get straight into it, okay? That's enough talking. So first, I want to say in the description there's going to be a link where the script that I'm going to read off, I wrote it like this needed time, and I spent a lot of time on it. So you can go red. Anything that's in red is a direct quote from Chaos. Anything in blue is a direct quote from, or I might put like parentheses from Alex. I need to restart this.
In this video, I'm going to be addressing some points brought up by Alex O'Connor from his YouTube channel Cosmic Skeptic. I'm going to play a few clips from his video and discuss the arguments he uses to debunk free will, so feel free to click away now if that doesn't sound of interest to you. Seriously, feel free to, because that's the position that I'll be defending in this video, that your free will is still possible despite the arguments that Alex brings up. Oh good, you're still here. I'll start off by saying that Alex approaches the problem without using the determinist case, or delving into neuroscience like Sam Harris does. I wouldn't call myself a compatibilist, so this is good, and we can grapple with some of Alex's other objections to free will.
Okay. So I'm going to hold up this video when I'm done with this section because it's kind of unimportant. But let me just read this off. So he says, Alex approaches this without using the determinist case or delving into neuroscience. Alex basically does use the determinist case. He himself is not a determinist, but he definitely uses the determinist case. Alex believes in random events, but these are not relevant to the argument because we cannot control relevant events. And Chaos did not mention anything about these, random events, so I'm pretty sure that Chaos doesn't even know Alex's position from his other videos, because that's how I know that he believes in random events. And I won't say obviously things are random, but I'm pretty sure Chaos has gathered that Alex is not using the determinist case solely from this video, so from this video alone, and I'm not sure how he figured that. Well, I am. Well, no, I'm not. Yeah, I was about to say, this one I'm not. If he doesn't know about the randomness thing, that Alex also thinks about randomness, and I'm assuming he doesn't, because he doesn't mention it, and it still would be the determinist case, so he should be thinking of Alex as a compatibilist, because there's not really any room to deny free will and still be called anything else other than what Alex is. And there actually are a lot of different things, like weird things, but then you can come and I don't want to comment on these other, this doesn't matter anyway, but like compatibilists, all of it, every time I have it explained to me, it sounds like people that are determinists but are in denial, right? Like stuff like that, or it's what I want anyways, so why should I care? Like stuff like that. But anyway, and then he says, secondly, note that Chaos mentioned that we will not dive into neuroscience. And then he says, I wouldn't call myself a compatibilist, so this is good. So he believes that Alex is arguing the compatibilist case, since he's not making a determinist one. At least closer to compatibilism. And he notes that we aren't delving into neuroscience. Yet Chaos thinks that this means not being a compatibilist is better. Like, he sees these two things, that we're not diving into neuroscience, and that Alex is closer to being a compatibilist, or is one. And he thinks that himself not being a compatibilist is better now. So at the very least, Chaos should know that, I kind of repeat myself, I'm being very redundant. So it would be better if Chaos did call himself a compatibilist. They'd be closer in ideology than if he called himself a libertarian, which is what I'm assuming he is doing. P.S. Of course, Chaos would actually be closer to Alex's ideology if he were a compatibilist, no matter what position Alex argues from, determinist or not. It's like, think of a spectrum of libertarians down here and then full hard determinists up here. If he's not a determinist, of course he's lower, but Chaos being a compatibilist would put them on much more even ground either way. I'm just letting you know that Alex is likely a compatibilist because it's almost like they'd be nearly the same thing. We don't want to have much to have to address in this video. I just I did that. And also, so then the second one, does he think that neuroscience supports compatibilism? That it doesn't. Maybe all that he meant was that it's a good thing because he doesn't understand neuroscience, and that's why he's like, it's good. He wasn't attributing it to him being a compatibilist that he's glad we're not going into neuroscience, but he was just saying that he doesn't understand it, and I agree. But it just sounded like, I don't understand it either. I don't want to go into that, but it just sounded like he was attributing it to him being a compatibilist. So, I'm done.
Cosmic Skeptic defines free will in his video as the ability to have acted differently. That is to say, I could have chosen to make a video on an entirely different subject than this one that I've chosen, because I had the freedom to decide what course of action I would take. Bearing this in mind, let's move on to Alex's first point.
Let's begin by considering what would have to be true in order for us to truly have total free will, to be able to have acted differently. Well, firstly, we would need to be aware of everything that is influencing our actions, including environmental factors, our precise mood, the influence of other people, the influence of past experiences, and more.
An unawareness of the factors influencing your decisions does not automatically rule out the possibility that you may have acted differently. For example,
okay, so all he did right there was just say nuh-uh. There was nothing else other than just saying nuh-uh, because if you don't, you should automatically know that if you're not stupid. I don't like it's but I'll go and explain. I'll explain why. So he says an unawareness of the factors influencing your decisions does not automatically rule out the possibility that you may have acted differently. I had to look this up. Of course, I didn't know what this or not. Of course, I'm sure if you're watching this, you probably know. A tautology. He drags it on to make it sound like he said something, but all he said was, "No, you don't need to know all the factors, just some." That's what he did. That what I just said, "No, you don't need to know all the factors, just some," is exactly what he just said. You can't just say that. The claim is that we need to know all of them, so you don't come back and just say and drag it out and say "nuh-uh" in a longer fashion. That's what all he did. Like, literally, if he replaced that with "nuh-uh," would you have, if you're actually one of these people that took what he said as, like, interesting? Like, if he just said "nuh-uh," would you have been like, No, you wouldn't. What if I told you that to win a chess game, I'll go further in case you still don't believe me. What if I told you that to win a chess game, you must control the center of the board? I show you that the best opening move is the king's pawn forward, and that for white, of course, and that most opening strategy videos on YouTube are all about how to move your pieces to gain as much control over the center as you can, and to limit your opponent's control as much as possible. But you disagree with the claim. Well, then you can't just say, drag it out, be like, foregoing the seizure of control in the center of the board is not a detriment to your lead when you have the ability to capture a particular piece, because it is more important to gain a material advantage on your opponent. Because no matter how long-winded and maybe even right in my example case, I'm making the example as fair as I can. Your claim is still just a claim. If you don't play chess, or even if you do and just aren't listening carefully, you will think that I just said something. But I didn't. Chaos gives an example, but let's hear it first.
It could be the case that these factors have made one option more appealing to you, but you still have the freedom to choose something else based on the fact that you know some of what is influencing your choice.
Okay, so that's not an example. He does the exact same thing again. It's another tautology. So Alex claims that we need to be conscious of every factor influencing our decisions to be able to confidently say that we have acted freely. Chaos then responded, he says, no, we just need to know some, and then continues on without actually explaining how this is possible, to just that we only need to know some. He basically said, for example, it could be the case that you have an option to, okay, first let me preface this. I'm doing my example. I'm showing the logic that he used through my chess example. So, for example, it could be the case that you have an option to either move your knight to the center or to capture a bishop near the edge. In this case, it is preferable to capture the bishop near the edge because you will gain a material advantage. At least in my example, I have the word because in there. I don't even know if that is even a good joke or if that means anything. But I was just saying that because it kind of is not. Anyway. But in all seriousness, all I did in my chess example was restate what I said earlier. That taking one on the edge would be preferable because a material advantage is better than control of the center. It's restating it. No, you must explain why this is the case to the example, and not just conjure up a scenario where you could be right. If everyone did this, then everyone would be right. My chess example should have explained why capturing a bishop near the edge can benefit a player more than coordinating around the center, not just adding more words to clarify that my position is that doing so is more beneficial. I needed to show, like, through an example of, like, it probably should have included, like, potential outcomes, stuff like that. It should have, like, actually demonstrated how it's better and not just given a scenario where it's better, where you think it's better. It's like, okay, why? Right? Why? You must first explain how the infinitely small number of factors that we are even conscious of are actually the ones that primarily drive our actions every day. And then you must also explain how the factors we are aware of can be controlled at all. So let me explain what I mean there is, the first thing is I say, you must first explain how the infinitely small number of the factors that we are even conscious of are the ones that primarily drive our actions every day. So he never does this in the video. He never addresses this, but he needs to show, because think about it, like if your actions, if he's saying that you only need to know or be aware of a small number of them, that comes with the assumption or implication that only a small number of those factors, and it is a small number. I mean, you're right, it's not infinite, as he says later in his video, but it's near infinite. I won't say it's near infinite because infinite's huge, but it's too many to keep on your mind is the point. Way too many. And if you're saying you only need to know some of these, then these few factors must be contributing at least primarily, if not fully, to the actions that you take. Because if you control those, and you're saying that, influences your action, are you understanding what I mean? I don't know if I need to go spend too much time, because I'm going to have like 2 hours worth of videos. But yeah, I mean, you should. Oh, and then I gotta get the second. So, like, again, I'll just say it. If it's only we need to know a small number of factors, then those must be primarily controlling behind our actions, or I should say fully, maybe, but I'll say primarily, or else, like, I don't know. I don't even know how to explain that. It kind of just anyway. I'm speculating. Hold on, I need to pause this because I don't know what this next part is about. Okay. I'm speculating, but this is kind of what I thought was the reason he was saying these things. So, what Chaos is thinking of is his own experience with the illusion of free will. Yes, we can single out certain desires of ours and act against them, like someone dieting to lose weight or a parent emotionally regulating themselves after a bad day at work. They understand the origins of their emotions and things like how the child doesn't deserve neglect or mistreatment, and things like whether someone else or and whatever else before they get home, and they begin to actively suppress their anger and frustration. But as Alex and I are arguing, and has yet to be addressed, there are countless other factors and desires influencing even just the desire to regulate your emotions. And there are even more factors that set the stage for if it is possible for you to regulate the emotions or yourself once you've reached a certain point. Just as example, I need to play the.
This argument requires the premise that Alex is about to make in his defense, that we are always acting in accordance to desires that we have no control over. In this case, it is not us, but the desire that is causing us to act. And since we cannot control what desire is causing us to act, we are not free. Let's listen to what Alex says.
Can I control what it is that I want? Not a chance. Consider the fact that you, presumably, don't want to punch your mother in the face. Can you choose to want to do that? This isn't the same thing as choosing to do it. Could you choose to want to?
Not so fast, Alex. Later on in the very same video, Alex actually says something that's important to note in this point.
There are only two reasons, none more in any circumstances, for which you will ever do anything. In fact, it's impossible for you to ever do anything for any reason other than one of these two. And those two reasons are because you want to or because you're forced to.
This is a definition that I actually agree with. I do believe...
Remember this. I do believe...
that everything you choose to do, you either want to do or you're forced to do. Bearing in mind that it could be said that even when you're...
That kills him.
...forced to do something, you still want to do it. Now, as peculiar as this act would be...
And I'll show you why.
The question does not become, would you want to punch your mother? In the sense that you would be able to control...
First off, let me just go... I'm going to end up getting to all this stuff anyway, but let me just set the kind of overarching or primary argument. I don't know what words to use, but he says he agrees that everything you do is because you want to do it. Again, I said I'm excluding the force to part. Everything you want to do, or everything that you do, is because you want to do it. And then he says the question does not become... What he means is the question that we need to answer to figure out if we have free will or not does not become, would you want to punch your mother? Yeah, it's not. We're not asking if. First off, you need to get how you say the question right. It's not would you want to. It's what can you control your want to. First off, but I think that's what he means by would you want to, and that most certainly is. I think the reason he doesn't say, can you control the want to punch your mother is because then it would be completely obvious to him that he is it's just, this should be instant in your mind. He literally agrees that everything you do is because you want to do it. And then he says, the question is not about what you want. Yes, it is. It's about if you would want to punch your mother, period. If you agree with that. But, so let me just read what I put. I said, at least he first gets Alex's position correct when he says, the question does not become, would you want to punch your mother, even though he actually doesn't, but he kind of does, in the sense that you would be able to control your desire. So, because at least he understands what Alex is asking about, if we can control our desires, right? Then he continues, and end up with something from some enjoyment from doing it. So, maybe I just realized he clarifies and says in the sense that you're able to control your desire, but you will see it's just constantly things that don't go with each other and contradict each other with this whole video. And he says, and end up with some enjoyment from doing it. This, however, is where he makes him misguided and self-destructive because it is self-applicable. and I'll just say why that is in a minute, assumption about Alex's argument. And B, he overcomplicates the discussion with an unnecessary addition, which is that enjoyment thing, making it easy to fall for the same illusion he does. How? Because even within the determinist framework, the connection between doing what we want and doing what he calls, maximizing pleasure. I'll get into all this in a minute. It's just much of this has to do with how vague he is and how his lack of clarity. Because maybe if he defined what he meant by maximizing pleasure, if he meant just like maximizing pleasure and some enjoyment don't sound like the same things, but he uses them as the same things. So, like, I'd agree we get some enjoyment, but maximizing pleasure, I'll get into this in a minute. Especially since Chaos does not actually explain what he thinks he means by that. That's what I was just saying. So, A, Alex never says anything about enjoyment in his video or pleasure. He doesn't even say the word pleasure. Chaos just inferred it. I can only assume the reason why Chaos did so is because Chaos said that people can only ever do what it is they want. And because Alex is asking the question, can you choose to want to punch your mother? I think he's like, well, enjoyment must follow because it's about what you want to do, and what you want to do, we enjoy, right? I mean, they're kind of tied. I think that's where he's getting it. Otherwise, I have no freaking clue where he would be getting the idea that we are saying determinism demands that every action we take be an effort to maximize our pleasure, which is what he claims Alex thinks later, if he hasn't already said it. Just so you know, first, I'm going to make this known. I'm not saying if we, as in me and Alex, because I don't know yet either, do or don't think. Alex could very well think that we do maximize. He could be getting it from another video. I don't know. I doubt it. I'm pretty sure it's this one. He never says from any other video. But if Chaos agrees, I need to check the time. I might be going to do another video. Okay, I got a little bit longer. If Chaos agrees that we only do things that we desire and infers that doing so inherently brings some enjoyment, then doesn't that mean that he thinks the question about if we have free will definitely does include something to do with us ending up with some enjoyment? It does. And he does agree later on that we only do, or he did, that we only do what we want. Maybe he thinks that some enjoyment and maximizing pleasure are two different things, and of course they are. But I hope by now I don't need to explain why they are the same in this. And maybe he uses it later as kind of like. I'll tell you why. Except he doesn't think they're different. Later on in the same video, he lets it be known that he thinks Alex's position is that all actions are taken in an effort to maximize our pleasure. So that would include this example, and this one where he thinks we're getting enjoyment from hitting our mother. By the way, I'm not saying again. Okay, I kind of reiterate this. I'm not saying Alex does or doesn't think this. I'm just saying Alex never ever comments on this in his video. And the very thing that Chaos is basing his inference on is something he agreed with himself. So the question doesn't become anything other than, would you want to punch your mother, in the sense that you would be able to control your desire and end up with some enjoyment from doing it, because this never was the question. You cut off everything after he says, cut off everything he says after control your desire, and you'll end up with precisely what Alex said in his video, and I'll do that now. So, would you want to punch your mother, in the sense that you would able to control your desire? Hold on, what? Control your desire. Yeah, that's it. Control your desire. Cut off the enjoyment, and that's what Alex said in his video. If you had actually answered the question instead of dressing it up with more crap, more mess, then we wouldn't be as confused as we both are. The only question that needs to be answered is about if we can control our wants. If you actually did think that doing what we want is maximizing pleasure, then it would make sense that all you are linking enjoyment to, or no, then it would make sense that you are linking enjoyment to carrying out the action. But you say later that you do not think this. Chaos forces words into our mouth and then applies them incorrectly. So he says, the question just becomes, could you carry the act out? No, the question is most certainly about if we can control our desires and nothing else. Maybe someone will say he meant to place emphasis on and only deny the part about feeling enjoyment rather than say that the question isn't about controlling our desires. But I did not finish that. I think I explained this earlier and it might be redundant, but I need to pause and I think it was just a typo. I think there was no supposed to be a but there. So they might say that chaos thinks the question, can we control our desires, is the same exact question. So that, yeah, this is what it was a typo. It's the same exact question as could you carry out that, could you carry that act out? They're the same thing. This is not at all acceptable to do in a debate, by the way. That is, the way he phrased it is radically different than can we control our desires. He's very clearly at least making it sound and framing the question to be answerable, yes, even if you are a determinist. That's not acceptable. But ignore how it's not acceptable, and I'll explain. So ignore how I just showed you that only one of these options are true. Either one, Alex never meant we try to maximize our pleasure, or two, Alex and Chaos both agree that we tried to maximize our pleasure. And the way I figure this is because of how Chaos made his inference. And therefore, it renders his argument invalid. If Chaos really thinks that these are the same, then why did he bring this up and complicate things in the first place? If this section is trying to prove the point that Alex just proved the point that Alex was wrong in thinking that we get enjoyment out of things, would it be much clearer if Chaos had said, the question does not become, would you want to punch your mother, in the sense that you would be able to control your desire and end up with some enjoyment from doing it. The question just becomes, could you control your desire even if it goes against what feels good, or is not an effort in maximizing pleasure, or whatever, something like that. He doesn't do this because it's not his argument. He's literally talking about if it's physically possible to do the action. And he actually doesn't. It's weird because he is definitely talking about physical possibility, but yet his argument, the way he structures it and the stuff he implies from it, is not about physical possibility. And of course, there is a glaring difference from his version than how Alex worded it. Even still, Chaos's version says, "Could you go ahead and carry that act out?" It definitely leaves room for answering yes, even in a determinist framework. But the way Alex puts it, "Could you have acted differently?" leaves no room. A person reading that sentence would immediately understand what it's asking. Chaos can be interpreted to be asking about physical possibility and answered yes, even in a determinist framework, especially when he says things like absolutely out of the realm of possibility to stand up, go over somewhere and punch your mother. It's drastically different than could you control your desire. So after you watch this video, ask yourself, why do you think he only brought this bullcrap up if physical possibility about if it's physically possible on the punch your mother example? This is literally done by Alex on purpose, by the way. It is because hitting your mother is a thing absolutely no one does. And obviously I'm exaggerating, but you can definitely feel the mental restraint if you try to punch your mom, and no one can deny that. So it kind of makes sense that it is possible to hit someone, that if it's possible to, I don't know, hold on. Like it makes sense that they would attack that part about it being physically possible, because if they show that it's physically possible, then you see what I'm saying? Like, if we don't have free will to do it, then it might not be physically possible. Like I don't know what he's like, or you can feel that strong emotion in it, and that It's like I'm struggling to understand how he got here. But let's say you've seen the part about Alex's video, which we'll get to if you have not, where he said, and this is paraphrased, "Why did you pick chocolate instead of vanilla?" It's because you want to, simply because you want to. Why is your want for chocolate stronger than the want for vanilla? It just is. Could you choose to want vanilla over chocolate? Now I'm kind of putting that example into his words from this example. So, could you choose to want vanilla over chocolate? This isn't the same as choosing to eat it. Could you choose to want to? What if Chaos responded to this? I wouldn't say it's totally out of the realm of possibility. You could have stood up, walked over there, and picked vanilla instead of chocolate. You would see how stupid that reasoning is. But because he said it after, can you choose to punch your mother in the face? That you allow him to shift the focus onto what Alex explicitly tried to address when he said, "This isn't the same as choosing to do it. Could you choose to want to?" That's exactly what he was trying to address, and Chaos still fell for it. So I'll explain later, and when I get to this section about this thing between maximizing pleasure and not maximizing pleasure, like how it can be either way in the determinist worldview. But for the time, I'm gonna end this video and pick that up. I won't pick up there, but I will get to that.